Hey, what is up everyone? Hope you're all having a wonderful time. Here an updated version of the Impending Doom Pathfinder in Path of Exile. The Impending Doom Pathfinder is a very strong build that can do most content in the game. The build curses enemies, which will then poison them in a huge area. How the build works is that we use the Vixen Entrapment Glove, and this will make it proc all curses socketed in it whenever you're using a curse skill. And this will then immediately overwrite your maximum curse limit, and Impending Doom curse will proc and deal chaos damage. The build focuses on poison stacking, and by using Spell Cascade we make it so we will overlap on enemies for tons of poison stacks. You can play this build with different variations, but for this version we're using the two-handed version as it's a really budget-friendly build, as you can start it with a 6-link staff for really cheap. The build is also using Plague Barrier, which will start to incubate, adding plague value as it inflicts poison damage from Impending Doom. We can then use this skill to deal chaos damage per second to nearby enemies. Combining Malevolence with the Divine Blessing makes it so we can use a free aura for even more damage. Lastly, we also have a focus skill which we'll get from our helm, and this makes it so all ailments will inflict while focused is increased up to 30%. We also get some really strong defense by converting all physical damage taken to different elemental damage from different sources, and by being a Pathfinder we'll make it so we can have permanent uptime and boosting the effect with our Flasks. By using Sapphire, Ruby and also a Topaz Flask we'll reduce the damage taken by each respective element. And with the full physical conversion to element, this will also then be reduced as well. We have full spell suppression with a high evade chance, as well making us have a very high effective hit pool with this build. And for this version we're also using a bit more life regen as well, making this really a lot more tanky while we are mapping. With the new tattoo system in Trail of the Ancestors, they're also really easy to get yourself immune to everything. With this build we managed to get all elemental ailment immunities. Curse, Stun, Poison and Bleed also don't have any effect on us. I go more in depth later in the video about how we mitigate everything, so stay tuned for that or use the timestamps in the video. For the pros, good single target and crazy AoE, very tanky, can do most content in the game, and a great thing is that you don't have to worry about elemental resist on the gear, as we get all we need from their flasks and also from Purity of Element. Some cons, weak against the damage over time, and you will have some struggle against some map mods such as reduce cooldown recovery and also regen. For some uniques we're using Vixen Entrapment, which is the unique glove that makes this build work. We gain so we trigger socketed curses spells when we cast a curse skill. We also get some spell damage listed as Energy Shield, 1 additional curse and increased cast speed for curses. With the Vixen equipped and Whisper of Doom allocated on the skill tree, you have a maximum curse limit of 3 curses. The Vixen procs all curses socketed in it whenever you use a curse skill, and this will then overwrite your Impending Doom curse, and the first curse you put in the glove will be a filler curse, and this curse will not be applied on the enemy target. Lightning Coil is another unique we're using, and this provides one of the biggest defense for this build with its unique modifier 50% of physical damage from hits taken as lightning damage. And as I mentioned before, this combined with the Topaz Flask is really good for this build, and the chest also got some decent armor and evasion on the base and some extra life for our character. Taste of Hate is another one for the defense, and not only do we get less damage taken from the Sapphire base, but also up to 15% of physical damage from hits taken as cold damage. And by being the Pathfinder we can boost this number up by getting a lot of increased Flask effect. If you're going for a lesser budget, a normal Sapphire Flask will work good enough. We're also using Watcher's Eye, and here you can choose from a bunch of different combinations, and the first thing here is that you get the physical damage taken as any of the elements, and here you can actually have more of these at once. So for instance you can go for damage taken as lightning and another cold for instance. You can also go for movement speed while affected by grace. There's also spell suppression by having grace, damage leech as life while affected by vitality, also damage over time multiplier or bleed immunity while affecting by malevolence. It all depends on how big your budget is. Optional, we can also use a Cane of Kulimak if you have the currency for it, and here you want to look for increased chaos damage with the skill effect duration, plus level of Sakura supported skills with quality, and also chaos damage over time multiplier. and these are the same stats that we want for our normal staff. Some stats to look for is going to be life, chaos resist for the min-max. All attributes can be really hard to come by, especially now with the new tattoo system. Try to focusing on strength and intelligence though. Cooldown recovery rate, cast speed, increased chaos and damage over time, chaos and damage over time multiplier, and pretty much anything with Flask on it, most importantly Flask effect. For the links, for our main setup we're using Despair, Impending Doom, Spell Cascade, Deadly Ailments, Void Manipulation and Unbound Elements. On the Vixens we have Punishment, Spell Cascade, Enfeeble and Temporal Chain. And important that you have Punishment skill at the first socket, as it will work as the trigger curse for Impending Doom and will not be applied on the actual enemy. For some extra damage we're also using Plague Barrier now, with also Focus, which is the element duration on the helm. For auras we're using Purity of Elements, with Val Grace, Vitality and also Malevolence. For utility, Steel Skin, Flame Dash and a Cast on Death setup with Portal just in case. And for the flasks you want to have them with gain 3 charges when you're hit by an enemy, and also with the enchant used when charges reach full. And this combined with the flask mastery, recover 4% of life when you use a flask, is going to make us auto heal. And this works best while mapping, but do help out a bit for bossing as well. We're using a life flask here with increased amount recovery and also with bleed and corruption blood immunity. A Quicksilver for the movement speed and also with additional elemental resist is going to be enough to make us resist capped without having to worry about getting elemental resist on our gear. We're using a Topaz Flask with reduced effect of curses, so we don't have to worry about curses anymore. With 75% flask effect on this build makes it so we need at least 57% reduced curse effect for us getting up to 100%. We're using a Ruby Flask with the reduced mana cost of skills during effect, so we don't have to worry about the mana. And lastly, the Taste of Hate for the physical damage conversion to cold, and it's important here that you get a max roll here of 15% if you want to get your full conversion from fist to element. And let's go over the immunities of the build. So for the elemental element immunity, we get this from using the Purity of Element aura, nothing new about that. For curses, we're using the Topaz Flask here, as I just mentioned, with a reduced effect of curses. For bleed and corrupted blood, we have the Life Flask right now that we're using manually. For poison, we're using 7 tattoos of the Tohua Scout in the passive tree. And for stun immunity, we are using 5 tattoos of the Tassalindo Tide Shifter, and we're also using the Heart of Oak here for additional 20%, and also with the life and stun avoidance node right above it. And for Pantheons, for the major god, we're using Soul of Arikali to get some extra damage reduction from damage over time, and some extra life recovery after we're taking damage over time. For the minor god, we have Soul of the Rich Life for the flask charges every 3 seconds if we haven't used a life flask recently. Really nice to have for bossing. And just quickly, overview of the physical damage taking as element. First, 50% we get from the Lightning Coil. We have a Watcher's Eye, which will give us 12% while affected by Purity of Element. Taste of Hate with 15% and also with 75% increased flask effect will make it go up to 21%. And then we have 17% on our helm, we get 7% from the Eater of World implicit and 10% from Betrayal, the Carol's mod. And this will add up to 100% conversion from fist to element. And just a quick note here that you can get an extra flask effect on your belt, for instance, which will make it so the Taste of Hate will get stronger, and you can get up to 2% more fist to cold from this, making it so you maybe can get a cheaper Watcher's Eye, for example. And here you have a quick preview of the passive skill tree, but for more information about the build, I do recommend you to go and check out the Path of Building. Link for this will be in description. I still have some things that I want to try out with this build, but as it's mostly a matter of currency, I figured I just make a smaller update once I have that. So what do you think about the Impending Doom Pathfinder? Have you tried it before or tried another version of it? Feel to tell me in the comments below. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!